Welcome to Tea Time with Shayleigh and Amber. I'm Shayleigh Evans, and I'm a life coach for pets and their people. I'm a truth seeker, and it's my passion to empower others and to give animals a voice along the way.
I'm Amber Leidick, and I've been a performance horse trainer focused on behavioral issues for over 20 years. My current passion is creating impactful in-person and online events and collaborating with professionals to be on the leading edge of positive change in the horse industry.
We are two friends invested in theta healing, belief system work, animal communication, and any resources that benefit human-animal partnerships. So turn up the volume and let's dive into the Great Awakening, brought to you by our horses. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. We know it's been a while since you've heard our voices. We're sure that you miss them. Maybe you don't, but if you're here, you probably do. And we are excited to be back. I was just telling Amber that I got all amped this morning because I looked at something that I was tagged in on my business page, which I normally don't do. Normally, I'm like, oh, someone tagged me in like an ISO communicator post. And those are usually just people who they're just filled with comments of people who want to tell the poster that searching for a communicator is very invalid and all of their negative experience. It's like this perfect opportunity for everyone to just like come together and speak about how unhappy they are, which actually I'm gonna squirrel right away because I don't know if have you seen that lady on Instagram that types on her daughter's Leapfrog, like, fake little computer, and she does, like, hilarious skits, like, she'll be like, "Never going back to Chili's again, dot, dot, dot. I had a horrible experience where my tortilla chips were stale, and you know what they said to me? Too bad." And then she puts on all these different wigs, and someone's like, I had a toe in my food one time that I was there, and then the other person will be like, I couldn't find a parking spot. I had to circle for 3 days. And just like she puts on all these little personas and everybody just gets together in their offenses. And it freaking cracks me up. And I feel like Facebook is that. Like Facebook is literally that where people post something, then people get together and they like share in their offenses of things. But anyway, it makes me laugh. It's very entertaining, but it's also not the kind of energy that I want to call in. But something told me to look at this post. And so I posted it in my stories for those of you who are going to listen to this in the next 24 hours.
So I
It
mean, I
was just,
did
it was,
that fast.
yeah. Yeah. And I just commit you to editing this.
Yeah, it's
This
fine.
really fast. But this lady, she asked this question where she was like, I listened to a podcast and they were interviewing an animal communicator who worked with like some top competitive horses. And they were talking about how the horses didn't want to jump or how they felt about riding in the trailer and stuff. And she was curious why like the horse only answers questions that matter to the human. And she was kind of like, after you establish the connection and everything, like, wouldn't you want to hear what the horse had to say? Or like, is what the horse cares about really as important as what the person cares about? Like, why are they only answering questions that the person cares about? And I actually loved that question. I was happy that I clicked on it because I feel like that's such a valid question. And it's something that we kind of talk about. I feel like you and I talk about this to some degree or on different levels. My response to that lady was that horses are, they know how to take the path of least resistance. And if you guys have been listening to us for a while, you know that we talk about you can't be not in a vibrational match to something and be living that experience. So the horse that's in the experience as a jumper is a vibrational match to that scenario. So what's important to the human to some degree is what's important to the horse because it's directly affecting them. So a lot of times they'll use a communication experience to speak about their tack or speak about the rider's position or whatever because it does directly affect them. Um, I do think that sometimes the conversation can be skewed a little bit to that. Like, now I want to know about tack fit. Now I want to know this or that. But I've found, I will say that even when people ask questions like that, I've kind of found that they're doing it from a place of like, yes, they want the horse to perform, but that's because that's what they channel their love into. It's not, it's in my experience, like it's easy to say like, oh, this person just has competition horses and they are a dime a dozen or whatever, but the upper level horses, or just any horse in general that I've talked to, if they're coming to a communicator, they do care. Like they care about the saddle fit, they care about the well-being of the horse. They want to do the right thing by the horse. So all of those
Mhm.
questions, even though from the outside looking in, it could be like it can sound almost selfish or like purely geared towards what the human wants. The human's only asking those because they want their horse to be able to perform because that's what they love doing with their horse and that's how they show their love.
Yeah, and I think I just don't think that every person that's showing or shows or has a barn filled with horses that go show is like this horrible person that is out just to use the horses' bodies. And like,
Mhm.
it's just not everyone. And I know there's a lot of trainers out there that are maybe like that. But yeah, if someone's reaching out to a communicator, no, like if the horse wasn't working out and they tried quote unquote everything, then if it was true that they're just moving through them as like tools or a way for them to make themselves look good in a show ring, then they would just to the next horse. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just feel like you get to focus on what you want to focus on. If you really want to believe that the army has been unleashed, believe that all these people are horrible just because they show, then well, that's can be great. But I love showing. I love the discipline that I was showing in, and it was just fun for me to be there. I actually in the beginning didn't do that great. Like it wasn't for money or anything else other than I just loved having a goal that I was working towards. And like anything that came up along the way was like an opportunity for me to learn more about like how to be a better horseman or tack or whatever it was, a horse's body. And so like that path of going to get to the show was actually the path that created a lot of different learnings for me with all the other things that go along with it. So it isn't like I don't know. I just think people get really hung up on, oh, it was like that post I did the other day. It was like, it's not all horrible. You know what I mean? Like people swing one way or the other so hard, and like boundaries are not horrible. You know what I mean? Like showing is not horrible. Like just because somebody does XYZ does not mean that they are like this horrible human that's out to use the bodies of these animals and throw them to the side. It's like a lot of things can be true.
Yeah. And I think that's why we like digging for what's underneath something, because even in the ask of the question, you can hear that this person who's asking the question may be thinking like answering the human's questions is only serving the human and the horse
Mhm.
is suffering in some way and
Right.
not getting their voice heard and being invalidated and things like that, versus someone else could look at that and say, oh, this human is asking all these questions. They really care about their horse. They really want them to be able to succeed. So, yeah, that's what I love about the work that we do is we kind of like help people zoom out from that like perspective where you get so emotionally wrapped in things. And it was
So
fascinating.
offended.
Yeah. And I looked at the comments, which I know might not be the best, and which is ridiculous. Like we should be able to have conversations back and forth, but there's something that happens and I don't know what do you think it is when people are on Facebook? Like I know they say like getting hidden behind the screen, but I also think that there's like a disconnect that happens because like people can't hear the inflection in other people's voices,
Oh yeah.
and there's just like this whole disconnect that happens when you're like typing back and forth.
Yeah, because you're reading it and you're interpreting it through your own lens. You know what I mean? Like it's like you ever see those memes where they like take the comment or a comma out of a sentence? It's like grandma whatever for came over to eat dinner or we had grandma for dinner and like they move the comma and then it looks like you ate grandma for dinner. It's like I feel like it's the same thing. Like if you're in this mode of I have a belief that like communicators are scam artists. When you read anything and through that lens, you're going to translate it into what serves what you know, because that feels safe to your psychology, your subconscious, right? Like if I know this to be true and I stay with this, then this keeps me safe and then I don't get ripped off or I don't get whatever your belief is. So it's like you go into that, and if you're not able to take yourself out as like a third party and like see you not being incredibly involved, it's like if you can't put yourself into the shoes of the other person and think how many different ways could this actually being said, versus like me and my narrow mind and my belief systems is in taking the information and being offended and typing about how my offense. Um, so I think, yeah, it's like with text messaging, it's everything. It's like you can't hear. Humans are not designed to communicate back and forth that quick like that without
Hmm.
words and like feeling and seeing and understanding the energy of the other person you're having that conversation with. It's not like you're writing a letter and mailing it. It's happening like in real time, you know what I mean? Where you're all fired up and then it's happening. So, yeah, I think it's a major problem.
The major problem. And yeah, this one person was like, I don't understand how animal communicators can even be valid because or why wouldn't they, use like a scientific approach? Why wouldn't the owner do a scientific approach where they could follow these two people and know everything about their horse? And I was like, that's so fascinating because that just comes from a mindset that like animal communication is not scientific, you know what I mean? When we love Dr. Joe's work, and he has the largest scientific database on meditation and thoughts and visualizations emitting an energetic frequency and making chemical changes in the body. So there is like so much validity from a scientific standpoint that could potentially go into animal communication, but it's fascinating to me how people will immediately be like, a conversation with a horse? No, I don't believe that. And then in the next sentence, they're like, well, I feel what my horse is saying. They're like, and I think that comes from like them obviously like sussing out their own intuition and maybe not want to call it that or whatever the case may be. But it's just so funny because in the same breath, they'll be like, if you just pay attention to their body language and you see what they're saying, then you know, and you don't have to hire a communicator. And it's like, well, yeah, that is part of what communication is. It's paying attention to all the nuances of mind, body, and spirit. And I wrote this little snarky thing in my stories that I might regret later. What does it say? What's that little saying where it's like feeling great might delete later or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that? That's kind of
Feeling
like,
spicy might delete later.
yeah, that's totally what I felt like this morning, where I posted this post where I was like, if all of my intrusive thoughts made it into posts, I put it in my stories, and it's like a very singularly minded approach to what I like wanted
Mhm.
to get across. But I just usually when I see people butting up against animal communication, it always has to do with money. It's like they're pissed that they paid for something that they don't want to hear. And I'm like, people, can't you understand that you do that every day with your thoughts? Like, our thoughts literally emit a frequency that sends our energy into like vibration climate with whatever we're doing. So when you listen to that like negative thought in your head, when you're consistently getting offended by something and you're reinforcing it in my mind, like, yeah, I hate her and this and that, and you're planning everything out, you're literally paying that person that you hate with every single
Energy.
thought. But
Yeah.
it's funny because why do you think it is though with communication? I guess it could be with anything though, like people buy a product and then they're pissed about it, so then they leave a review, or if there's a service that they don't like, they like tell their friends. But there's something about like paying a communicator, not hearing what you want to hear, that like outrages people, and they're like, it's an absolute hoax, and now that I paid for it and it wasn't what I thought it was, it's a hoax. That is such a fascinating mindset to me. And I also love it from the perspective of like, oh, now you're paying attention, like now you're paying attention to hearing. And maybe that's because our animals are just so powerful. Like our animals are so powerful that they know if they come into contact with someone who challenges their belief system or doesn't tell them the information that they wanted, that it will be such a strong contrasting energy that it will push them further towards what they believe or what they're ready to believe. Maybe that's it, that the animals just know
Yeah.
what's going to like push the person into the next thing that they believe.
Yeah. Because people already, if you're hiring an animal communicator, I feel like you already have something in your mind that you believe to be true, and you're going for validation,
Mhm.
or you really don't know and you've exhausted all avenues and you're a little bit desperate. Like, I think I've been in both. So, if we're speaking to the first one where you're like, I believe this is true, but you just want that validation, and then you reach out to somebody who does that work and you don't get validated, it either challenges your own intuition, so which feels very offensive, like, oh my God, I could be wrong. Or it's like I've had sessions with people, intuitive people in different ways who've been very certain about a certain thing, and then it's not come to fruition. And the lesson for me was, oh, like I need to trust myself because that didn't feel in alignment. So either way, you're getting this lesson on, you know, why it's being curious about why do I need someone outside of me to validate XYZ, and why is it so offensive if it's not what I thought it was? Well, it's not what you thought it was, then you shouldn't have reached out in the first place. Like keep your beliefs to yourself. I don't know. It is interesting though. Um, but then I mean there could be people that have really terrible animal communicators that they've worked with. So if that's their experience, then I've only worked with two, you and Nikki, and you guys are both great. So I have had the luxury of not having that like really terrible experience. But I mean, I suppose it does happen.
Yeah, and I wrote that in my stories too, where I was like, I will say that the animal communicator is limited by their own experiences and their own research. And a common misconception with animal communication, and that was the argument in the comments, was this person was like, why talk to a communicator when there's a science-based approach? And my response to her too was like, there's a misconception that animal communication is a replacement for that. Like you're saying that on the basis of I'm going to talk to an animal communicator and forgo all science, and that's not what it's just a different perspective. It's not a replacement for veterinary care, talking to your professionals, researching, do if anything it just offers a little more input and you can take bits and pieces from it and decide what feels true to you and go somewhere else. It's not like this end all be all replacement to something that's going to cure all your problems. And
Mhm.
maybe that's like a misconception that a lot of people have. So it's like, I'm going to talk to my animal, get the answer I always thought I was going to get. And that's going to be, then our relationship is going to be healed. And it just doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. So,
I
um,
think the like shocking thing for me, not shocking, but like the thing that I don't think I ever thought of until I hung out on my computer with you was that that idea exactly where your animal communicator can only communicate to you to the extent where they understand stuff. Like a horse can either give somebody a picture of their, fetlock, and the communicator, not knowing anything about the anatomy, can be like the front leg at the lower limb seems like there's something wrong. Or if you have a communicator that really understands the anatomy, they can go into like fine details about it because like there's this different level of the intuition and the sight that you have and the understanding you have. You can see deeper into the things, or like any of the other things that you've like educated yourself on more around. So there's all of these different avenues you can go to support somebody, where if you have a communicator that's just staying like Molly likes her purple collar, cool. Like,
mhm.
but if you go to somebody who is like deeply and passionate about going further and deeper with it, then you're going to have a completely different read. But that may not be what people are ready for. Some people just want to know what their favorite color of the dog's favorite color. Like, and that's as far as they want to go. They don't want to know what their soul contract's about or what they're here to learn. Like, they don't want to know that, and that's fine.
Yeah, and that's why there's a bunch of different communicators out there. It's actually funny because I sent a video to my friend the other day, and then I asked him, I was like, "Did you listen to that video?" And he's like, "Yeah, but can't you ease me into it?" It was all about like reincarnation. It was like a Dolores thing that I sent him, a Dolores Cannon thing, and he's like, "Gosh, damn!" Like it was all about like what's gonna happen. Death is near, and when you die, what's happening on the other side. And to me, like that's so fascinating. And I was like, this is so crazy. And she was talking about he has a brother that's like really physically impaired, and she was talking about, like souls being in alignment with bodies that are physically impaired because you release karma faster, you
Mhm.
gain karma faster and all of that stuff. And so she and many other like spiritual teachers will talk about how there are more souls in line for handicap bodies than there are for able
Mm,
bodies because they just
yeah.
know how much they can accomplish in a single lifetime. So I sent
Mhm.
him that from my own perspective, being like, this is so fascinating, and me all like being immersed in that. Didn't even consider the fact that it was just going to be like information overload and challenge like all the belief systems that he's used to. You
Well,
need
you
to
must have been
embody.
on like Shayleigh was on like a video send out rampage, and she's like, I sent this one, and then I got one. I was like, that's a good one, but I feel like if you send that to so and so's mind is gonna be blown. I know. I sent him a different one because it's true. Well, I'll be with Doug and he'll ask me stuff, and I'm like, I try to go to start to explain it, and he's like, lost me. And I'm like, but I was doing it so simple, lost me. I'm like, okay. I
Yeah.
still don't know what you do. I'm like, oh, we might just live the rest of our lives that way.
It's so fascinating too when yeah, when you practice something and it just becomes, I think that's with anything though. It's like if you study something, and but that's what these people are talking about. It's like only want to hear information from someone who's studied books, who's done case studies, who've gotten peer reviewed, that have focused their attention so much in this subject that it feels very, they can show me tangible evidence. I think that's the hardest thing with like the work that we do. Well, you offer more tangible stuff because you like, you'll train the horses and you work with them in a different way versus with me it's like a lot of intangible information where, and that's why I became obsessed with anatomy, because I wanted to be able, I really wanted the horses to be heard, and I was like, what's the best way to do that? And it's, you have to give tangible information to somebody. Like that's the most believable. You have to be able to say the lateral heel is crushed and the medial heel is pulled forward. Go pick up that foot. Go take a picture of that foot and see what it looks like. And I actually just got a text this morning from someone that's like, I was terrified, but we pulled his shoes and yep, look at the x-rays, like they look exactly like this. And it's like some people don't need that. Some people can just blindly trust and be like, you know what? I contacted you for a reason. I'm hearing this for a reason. I'm going to do it and see what happens. And I'll get messages from that where people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't try this before, but it was scary." Because it's scary to make changes, especially, you know, we like control as humans,
Mhm.
and we think that what we're doing is kind of um, controlling the outcome and keeping ourselves safe and our animals safe, and it can be hard to just kind of go in this different route, but yeah, some people need the tangible evidence, and if you're listening to this podcast and you are someone who needs tangible evidence, be sure that you find a communicator who pays attention to that and who cares about that so that you can have a conversation that is meaningful to you, because yeah, communication is a conversation, and it's just as much on the communicator as it is on the person, just as you would be going to a trainer. Like if you're a hunter jumper trainer, you wouldn't be going to someone who primarily teaches cutting. Like it's just two different it's two different things. So if the tangible evidence is important to you and you start reading an animal communicator's profile and they're like, the fairies are upon us, and and it's just, it feels extremely spiritual and extremely out there, and you immediately are like, oh, I don't know, but she came highly recommended. Who the fuck cares if she came highly recommended? Like
You're
this
not gonna get
person
what
is
you want.
probably not your cup of tea. Go find somebody else. Ugh. That's why I don't totally love reviews, and I took reviews off of my page. I had so many good. I had like hundreds of like 5-star reviews, and finally I was like, no. I don't want people reading these reviews and making assessments on other people. I don't read reviews when I buy a product because it's all people's individualized experience. And like, does that have anything to do with me, really? Like, does it? Like, do you think when we read reviews, do you think it has anything to do with us? Do you think that it like either it
Well,
doesn't at all, or do you think we sift through and find whichever one reinforces our belief system?
I think if you're talking about like an actual physical product, yes, because like the microphones I got for recording, I looked at the reviews because it's an actual thing you plug in. I want to know like what's the quality, how far can you walk, like. But if you're talking about like a therapist, or you're talking about like a communicator, or you're talking about even like a trainer, like when you talk about like a human, when a human is involved, maybe that's what it is, and the
Mm.
reviews are on the human, everyone's going to have a different version of that person depending on their own energetic signature at that current moment. It doesn't even have to be like who that person is. So I think if you're talking about like a service provided by an actual human being, I think it gets a little tricky. But like physical products, I look at the reviews.
Yeah, it's, I guess I'll look sometimes because you want to know if it's like cheaply made. So
Hmm.
then for a person. Yeah, but you also kind of want to know if the person's cheaply made too. But then it's like what
Well, then I'd like if the person comes highly recommended by multiple people that I know and trust, I probably wouldn't look at the reviews. It wouldn't matter to me.
you
Because
would
if
look
I
at
did
their
see a negative
website,
review,
right?
I would not, I would, huh?
You would look at their website though, right? And then what happens
Yeah.
if you look at their website?
And they have reviews.
Oh, no, what happens if you
Oh.
look at their website, you start reading about them, and you
Oh.
already have an idea of how you want like the space to go? Would you be able to be like
Yeah.
open-minded and be like, screw it, they came highly recommended? Or would you see that and be like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would potentially be?
Yeah, if it's super far off, like if it was too, I see fairies. And I have friends that see fairies. Like I don't not believe in fairies, but like if I'm going to somebody, it's probably going to be because I have an actual physical issue that I can't figure out. It's not going to be what's my soul connection because I feel like I already can go there. I would need somebody more grounded in like the body or like, that kind of stuff. Like I think that's when I would reach out. So I think it depends. But yeah, if they were like way far off and I knew what they were giving me was not even going to be close to what I needed, then yes. But if I'm just like, I'm going to try this person out for no specific reason, then I would probably be open to whatever they had to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, so I think when people are like finding somebody, anything, a product, a person, a whatever, keeping in mind, but where's the balance in keeping in mind what, and maybe this doesn't matter so much to products, but like people and services, keeping in mind what's important to you, the answers that you're looking for, but also where's the open-mindedness into hearing stuff that maybe like you're ready for, but you don't know that you're ready for, or because there's also that balance too, right? Like knowing your question, knowing what you're coming to find out, but maybe your animal tells you something completely different, or maybe this provider tells you something completely different. How do you stay open-minded enough if you are focused on the outcome?
I think it depends on the individual. Like there are people that are so deeply rooted in certainty, they need certainty. They're very uncomfortable with uncertainty, so they'll stay more rigid in what they hear, or maybe they don't even really. And I feel like sometimes people will hear stuff and they may reject it in that moment, but then like 6 months down the road, all of a sudden that one thing is like so relevant that they're like, holy shit, like I didn't even think that was a thing. And now, so I think it's all good. Even if they don't get what they think they wanted in that current moment, I still think somehow it's going to serve them. So when I think about negative reviews, even I think about I would read them and maybe that negative review is someone who thought they were getting something, but it's exactly what I wanted. So it would actually like make me want more to talk to
That's
that person.
true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's such a good point. That's so true.
But it is about tapping into like I usually if I'm going to do something like that, I sit with the energy of that person. I'm like, is this going to serve me or not? Or am I going to feel like and then I just go from
Hmm.
there. If I read the reviews, I think it doesn't matter what people say for me, but I know it does. It's very significant for a lot of people. So
Yeah, it is, which is interesting. That's all bringing us back to ourselves, and we pay attention to that. It's just fascinating to me how, when it comes to stuff like that, we will read reviews, listen to friends, whatever, and like reject stuff so quickly. But then when it comes to like that little voice in our head that's like, you're too fat, you don't sit up straight enough, you're this, you're that. We're constantly like, I know, and I'm trying to change. Like we're always just like listening to them and taking them at face value. But if that was somebody's review or someone's comment on Facebook saying it back to you, you'd be like, no, I'm not. Like, who the F are you to come and tell me like how to feel or whatever? So life is so fascinating to me. It's such a cool, this is kind of a cool topic because I feel like, probably many of our listeners are into animal communication, but there's so many like nuances around it. There's so many different things that we could talk about, and I still am skeptical about other communicators. Like I do this, but I do feel, it's just like how you wouldn't just lovingly accept like every other trainer just because they're a trainer. So,
hmm
yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but
just have to listen to your own intuition when you're going to pick someone that's going to do work for you. And even if you don't hear what you think you wanted to hear, you probably needed to hear it. So just don't reject it all the way. Keep it in your back pocket for maybe later.
Yeah, that's so true because I've had many connections where someone will be like, "No, that doesn't make sense to me." And then they'll message me like a couple months later and be like, "Oh my gosh, this came to fruition and it, got called forward or whatever." And
Mhm.
I do think that our animals, like speaking specifically to communication, our animals are always like several steps ahead of us. So they will, and that's why I have been able to move out of like pity or guilt when it comes to them doing like being in hard situations because they just have such this like broad perspective or this like overview or this knowing that sometimes they have to go through this hard experience to get to the other side of what they're like wanting to accomplish with us or within themselves. And I guess that's what parents do to kids too, right? Like parents are like, you have to get through this hard experience of, you know, getting braces on
Hmm.
your teeth if you want straight teeth or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like a means to an end sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that's, well, with horses and kids and whatever, there's like that level of codependency where I think people try to step in and help kids, animals, whatever people in their lives avoid any type of struggle as if it is suffering. And those are synonymous, which I do not think that is two things that are the same. But this, like, the struggle is like where all the good stuff happens. So while sometimes I feel like when I'm letting that happen for my kids, like, I have to remember that this is where you're going to remember this one. If I just pick up all the pieces for you and like do this for you, then you're going to have to learn it again, which in the long run is that's suffering. Like,
Hmm.
just get through this struggle, this minor moment of your life. It will probably like be a vast little blip in your story you tell one day. Like, if you learn it all the way and you go through it, it's like that old like thing with helping a butterfly out of its cocoon. Like you kill it. Like you need the resistance to be able to get the resilience and the lessons that you can take through the rest of your life. So, and I don't feel like I have, there are moments where I'm like, oh God, that poor horse. But for the most part, like, you know, when you talk about having those souls in line for a handicapped body, I feel like the horses do the same thing where they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go have this really short, kind of fucking rough ass life to get to, this other thing. And so I always just go, they chose this, like, to try to like simmer down and not give all my oh God to everything. Because social media, your algorithm, you click one of those auction videos,
Oh,
you're
I know.
you're done. You're cooked.
You're
Like,
done.
so you gotta be real careful.
Oh, that's so true. Speaking of algorithm, on a completely different note, I have, listen, you guys, if you've never seen anyone trim a cow hoof, it is
Oh.
like the most fascinating. The amount of stuff they can dig out of a cow hoof and how deep they can go is so, or I guess they're claws, little cow claw, is what they call it. They put little glue on booties on one claw if one has an issue. Have you watched any of the videos? Have I sent them to you?
I've seen a couple, yeah.
Every time I'm on Instagram, it's like all I'm watching. It's only that unless somebody sends me something else. But my algorithm is now, I want to say he's like Nate the Hoof Guy. That's who I watch. And he like they put the cow in the chute and he's like, all right, what are we seeing today? I bet the issue's right under here. And like just his knife is so sharp. I don't know how it's that sharp. I have like knife envy. I'm like, how is this thing paring away the foot so crazily? And then they like dig out all these abscesses and like it's actually pretty disgusting, but also satisfying. And they'll like post like a before and after of the cow walking in, and then she's got her little boot on one claw and she's walking out sound the next day. They like wrap their little foot and stuff. It's fascinating how they can dig into that foot. Yeah, I feel like more people need to see it. It's just
Well, how are we feeling? Should we talk about our Mustang adventure, or do we save that for a different episode?
oh yeah, we could speak about that a little bit. I feel like if we save it, we're never gonna talk about it.
Yeah, it'll be too far in our past.
Yeah,
We just got back from Arizona like a week ago or something. Was it just a week ago? Maybe 2 weeks ago? I don't know. We just got back.
very recently.
And It's our retreat that we do annually to Tempe, Arizona, and we go to the Salt River and we stay in this cute ass hotel that was originally built for the people working on the dam. So it's very old, has a lot of character, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, we stay next to the river, we do ceremonies. The focus of this last one was rewilding the domesticated woman. And it's so interesting because a couple people that do retreats, not horse ones, that I am friends with, were sort of talking about the same topic, which I thought was interesting at their own individual retreats. And I was like, oh, that was just like ours. That's so crazy. Maybe it's a theme for the universe right now.
That's really cool, actually. I didn't know that. Yeah, because every one of our events has some sort of theme, and it's usually brought in by you kind of calling in what the human needs, and then it's always in alignment with what the animals bring forward. And this time it was all about, what does freedom really look like? What is domestication? What is suppression through domestication? And that was actually brought to us by a Mustang that I had talked to who had been recently gathered, brought into her life. Everything was going well. Then she became super angry, and her person reached out to me and was like, "What's going on with her?" And it was such a fascinating conversation because the horse was like, I went into season and I'm angry because now I'm recognizing like all the horses around me are like shells or versions of themselves. I'm so suppressed here. In the wild, when I go into season, there's like mating, biting, running, like the whole herd is moving this creative energy through their bodies. And she was like, now I'm here. I'm in an individual paddock. I'm with another mare who completely doesn't know her body. I'm with a gelding who doesn't have any of this creativity at all. Like, where is his energy? Where is
They
his
took that
masculine
from him early
energy?
on.
Yeah. And it was just such a fascinating conversation to have because and the other thing too is she presented this idea to me of like all of these horses on the farm have hind end issues because all of that creative energy is suppressed and it's going into their body and into their bones and creating issues. And it's like, how many of us have horses with hind end issues? It's like such a predominant thing. The pelvis is such a predominant thing. And yeah, we ride them, which contributes, but then also like it makes you think of the spiritual energy behind that and how if the horses are like too over controlled or they don't understand something and all that frustration and that energy, instead of being able to creatively move it out with their people, that's more suppression going into their bodies. And it's just like, that's a whole nother podcast episode. But um, so
We gotta
we were,
start doing these more regularly again.
yeah,
I
we
forget we have
do.
so many things to talk about.
Yeah. But we spoke to that of like our theme for the weekend was, like, where is your creative energy going? You have creative
Mhm.
energy flowing through you every second of every day. And how are you using it? Like, are you, because it's there. And if you're not using it, where is it going? Which is like,
Mhm.
it's just so cool to think about. So,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
really fun. We we have
We saw an
we called
eagle.
in. We did. We really, Shayleigh and I were trying to manifest an eagle feather, and we did. It was just on the other side of the mountain, falling from the eagle into the cliffs in the
We
river
weren't
where we
entitled
could
to
not
it.
access. We weren't allowed to have access to it. We were definitely not entitled to it. But he was like, "Here you go. Here's your feather. That's all you get for now."
Well, I thought it was so funny too because everybody brought their horse's hair and we did this ceremony and they had to release the hair and there was some sort of resistance to that. Like Amber had braided her hair into little bracelets and someone got attached to the bracelet and we were like, "Sorry, you're gonna have to throw it in the river." Like
Well,
everybody
even
has
me.
hair.
Well, even me, I had brought some of my horse's tail hair from here because some people didn't have horses that were at our retreat. And so I brought it, and the tail that got left out that wasn't a part of the ceremony was Smarties, and I had it, and I was like, well, I don't want to let it go. But I really last year Shayleigh got a little fluff of Mustang hair, and I was like, oh, I want that, right? And so this year I was like, that's what I want. And I was like, I don't want to let go of Smarty's little thing. Like we all did a ceremony and then we threw it into the river, and I was like, should I? Yeah, of course. So I did it. Not even 10 minutes later, I'm trying to set up the camera to take a group picture, and I look up, and on the branch that I'm like trying to set it up on is this little tangled mess of the most all the colors. It's like red, white, black, like this little rip out of like mane or tail, probably mane, um, in the tree. So since I released my attachment to my own freaking horse's tail, which he's out there, I can always get more. I don't know what my deal was in that moment. It was the collective energy and the collective attachment I had. Then the gift I got was like, okay, good job. Now here's your main hair that you wanted. I'm like, great news.
Yeah,
Always
that was
learning.
awesome. And then we got our own lesson in seeing the eagle feather because we really wanted one. And then we got our own lesson in like, yeah, you can't be attached to this. However, we did say that we wanted an eagle to come and sit with us, and
Yes, and
he
we
sat with
did.
us through the duration of the meditation. The other cool thing too was we had to hike a lot the first day. Um, and we didn't find the horses until later in the day because what we didn't consider is when it was hotter, they were spending all their time in the river. Well, we went earlier in the year this year, and so they were all kind of romping around and going to like their little feeding area and stuff. And so they weren't as easy to find. But then the first horse that we saw was the same stallion that sat with us last time. It was like and he was just peeking his head out
I
from
know.
like the bushes.
So
We turned and looked and we're like, oh my God, that's him.
it's like we walked around the corner and I saw a little gray like streak and little booty, and I was like, oh, there are horses up here. And then we came back up and he poked his little head out, and I was like, oh my God, it's him. It's him. Like we just saw like a celebrity. He's the only one I cared to see. I was so excited.
Yeah, Tiago, for anyone who is
Hmm.
looking at the Salt River Mustangs and looking at their pictures and stuff. Apparently, he's the last of his bloodline. He had a little girlfriend, which was so cute, and um, yeah, it was a good experience. I think one of my favorite parts of that experience actually was I feel like it can be so easy to like go on an experience like that and be like, we're gonna find them at all costs, and you want to spend as much time as possible, and like it can be sometimes hard to like balance time. And also there were a few people with like some physical limitations on that trip, and I just loved how everybody like embraced everyone. It was such a beautiful thing to witness, that like people giving each other hands, getting in and out of our Vance was
Van.
upgraded this time. He
We
had
had
more
Bertha the first,
power,
last year was Bertha our van, and she struggled a little bit getting up some of those hills with everyone in it.
and her AC, like
Oh
she couldn't do like the AC getting up the hills, like doing all the things. Whereas Vance, he had a little more power. He was a little, oh my gosh. And you guys, can I just say that on every single event that we have wanted to do, I jokingly tell Amber I want to start with the national anthem. Like I'm like, like let's play, because I always get into my feels on stuff like this where like you wake up in the morning, like we were getting up at like 5 in the morning, we're up before the sun, everybody's in our van, we're going out to see mustangs, and I'm like, how cool is this? Like this is our life, and we in a country that we are able to do this. And then I'm telling Amber that, literally telling Amber like, how amazing is it that this is our life right now? And I hear, oh, say
On the radio.
coming on the radio, literally, the anthem starts playing. I turn it up to max capacity for these poor people in the van, and I just start like belting it out as we're driving. Amber's laughing because she knows that this is a manifestation that has just been coming for like 3 years in a row, and
Because I refuse to put the national anthem on any of our meditation playlists.
oh gosh, I get very patriotic, and yeah, it came on, you guys, and everyone listened to it as loud as it could go at like 5 in the morning. They were not as thrilled as I was, but I was very happy with that manifestation.
It was a good trip. It was a good trip. So
It
we'll have
was. We
to,
want to see you guys next year. We're gonna do
yeah.
it next year. We haven't booked yet because they haven't released the dates yet to book, but we will be doing it in April, May timeframe. And we are playing around with the idea of maybe like extending it. We were thinking like, actually, I was thinking this morning. I don't even know if I discussed this with you. But doing like 2 days and then everyone like a break day in between, and then
Mm.
finishing out the retreat would
Oh,
be like
yeah.
so fun, because when we do these retreats, it's so nice and it's all packed into one, but like we're waking up early multiple days in a row, and like the ranch is actually so nice to hang out on, and there's so many different things to do around there, hiking and things like that. I almost feel like people need like a day in between to be able to do like there's kayaking, there's like you could rent bikes, you could do so many different. You could go for a trail ride. They have um domestic suppressed horses there
Who
that
I
you
think they take very good care of.
yeah, they look super happy. So come to the event next year if you're interested. We'll probably put a wait list on Amber's
Yeah.
website at some point, and you can sign up for the wait list, and then you'll be the first to know when it opens up. Do you want to
Yep.
speak at all before we go about your trailering thing?
Oh, yes. Forgot about that. Um, I have a trailer loading that I am playing around with doing some live feed stuff. The audio was not as magical as I expected it to be, but the kinks are being worked out. But it's really around a lot of the stuff that we talked about in our Tea Talk, the trailer loading that we did. A lot more about the nervous system, a lot about a different mindset on the pressure of the halter and what your intention behind the halter is, even when you're trailer loading. And it did loop around to actually realizing that she has major anxiety just driving her own vehicle. So we identified that probably the horse's anxiousness and not wanting to load on the trailer had less to do with the horse and more to do with her. So I took her through a little process, and there's going to be a follow-up. She actually had to go on a road trip right after. So I gave her like a thing to do, a pattern interrupt. When I tapped into her energy, I was like, I just see you just squeezing, like even right now in our mind, squeezing the steering wheel. She's like, I totally do that. She's like, because it's accurate, because I get in the car and everybody's like, why are you holding the steering wheel so tight? Um, and there's just a few interesting things. And I almost said something about it earlier when you were talking about the voices in our head and how like we just listen to those voices. And an interesting thing I had her do, I was like, why don't you say there's shame tied into the trailer loading, there was fear. And I said, what if she came to you, your horse, in the trailer, told you, I feel ashamed that I can't get in this trailer right away. I'm already this old. I'm all this judgment around myself and I feel afraid. And I was like, what would you tell her? And because she was speaking really harshly about the fact that she had shame around it. And it was interesting to hear what she would tell her. She actually, I earlier in the session called it the Zen box because I'll do nervous system and I'll associate the trailer with like a down-regulated nervous system. That's basically all I do the whole time. And the story she told about the trailer was like, I would tell her it's okay to be afraid. And I was like, great, acknowledge that that's real. Then she was like, and that it is a death box. And I was like, whoa, whoa. Like there's our problem. It's not a death box. Like, but like these are the things that run internally if you're not made aware of are getting in your way of doing very simple tasks that just somebody being like, whoa, it's not a death box. It's just a horse trailer. No one's dying in there. You know what I mean? And so it was just an interesting take on it. And if you guys haven't heard our tea talk, that videos kind of shows like bits and pieces of what we talk about in that. So you can sign up for that and you get both if you haven't already joined our membership or haven't seen one of our tea talks. We did one public and it's like mind, body, spirit of hot topics in the horse world. And we give lots of different perspectives and practical advice and not so practical advice. And so yeah, I'll link that in the show notes.
Cool. Can't wait to listen to your trailering video. Yeah, come join our membership. Our next Tea Talk, if you're listening to this real time, is April 30th. We do one a month, and we have our monthly Q&A meeting talk.
Wednesday.
Yeah, on Wednesday. So that should be super fun. If you like this episode, please like, share it with your friends, leave us a review on
Oh,
your podcast platform. We
only
would
if it's
appreciate it.
good. Only if it's 5
Only if it's
stars.
5 star. We don't want, yeah.
Keep your
People
one
are gonna
star to
be
yourself.
People are going to be reading reviews on our services. Okay. We need them to be top notch. But also, we welcome honesty. So,
Yeah,
it is
never
what
start.
it is.
All
Cool. Thanks for
right.
hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Fun. Okay. How do I pause you?